When you hear this, turn the page.
This is TheReadback. Today we are starting with Kelley, and we are all up in Oprah's business. This is a biography that was written by Kelley in 2010. It says copyright 2010. It is the first edition. There are 20 chapters. This was in my collection that was passed down from family members and all of their books. And I just figured, hey, let's see what Oprah, since all this stuff is going on with Oprah, let's read this book. I was an Oprah fan, like many of you listening, and I'm not mad at Oprah. Am I disappointed? A little. But I want to read this from the perspective of Oprah and how or why she did what she did to get what she wanted to be where she is. So we're going to try to read this with no judgment. Well, who am I fooling? We're going to judge. So we're going to read this. This is by Kelley. I know nothing about any of these people besides what I have seen or read. So my opinions are my own. I don't know if what this author, if what she's writing is true. She's only getting from sources. A lot of times there are people can lie. That's the whole reason why we're reading the book, because nobody believes anything that Oprah is saying. But I just want to, I don't know, just figure out why. Why did she do the things that she did? Did somebody tell her to say these things? Because when I went online to try and find backups, my own research about what I could find about Oprah, and I couldn't find a whole lot, which means that she had help, because, I haven't done anything horribly wrong where I would be ashamed of it being on social media. But who knows? If I was to run for office or do something very public, I might need something that I don't want anyone to find out that may skew or detour my path to where I'm trying to go. So I would need like some big time help. So Oprah, I said all that to say that she's not alone, in her background and lack thereof of us finding. And the things that we did find perfectly line up with what she is saying. So she is the author of her own story, literally. So let's start reading and figure out what we can figure out. Like I said, I'm not an Oprah hater. I feel bamboozled, but everybody in Hollywood is a liar. It's who have you found out that has actually told you the truth about anything that they've done in their past? Because they want you. Well, now it's different, because it seems like the more salacious and violent and rude and mean and thoughtless and that you are, the more popular you are. But back in the day, you were a perfect gentleman, a perfect lady. You didn't do wrong. I'm just saying. So let's start reading. I'm going to skip the foreword. Maybe I'll read the blurb. Let's read the blurb so you can kind of get an overview of what Kitty is saying here. For the past 25 years, no one has been better at revealing secrets than Oprah Winfrey. On what is arguably the most influential show in television history, she has gotten her guests, often the biggest celebrities in the world, to bear their love lies, explore their painful pasts, admit their transgressions, reveal their pleasures, and explore their demons. In turn, Oprah has repeatedly allowed her audience to share in her own life story, opening up about sexual abuse in her past and discussing her romantic relationships, her weight problems, her spiritual beliefs, her charitable donations, and her strongly held views on the state of the world. After a quarter of a century of the Oprahization of America, can there be any more secrets left to reveal? Yes, because Oprah has met her match. Okay. Kelley has, over the same period of time, fearlessly and relentlessly investigated and written about the world's most revered icons: Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Frank Sinatra, Nancy Reagan, England's royal family, and the Bush dynasty. In her #1 best-selling biographies, she has exposed truths and exploded myths to uncover the real human beings that exist behind their manufactured facades. Turning her reportorial sights on Oprah, Kelley has now given us an unvarnished look at the stories Oprah's told and the life she's led. Kelley has talked to Oprah's closest family members and business associates. Probably the ones that Oprah has not paid, because, come on now. She has obtained court records, birth certificates, financial and tax records, and even copies of Oprah's legendary and punishing confidentiality agreements. She has probed every aspect of Oprah Winfrey's life, and it is as if she's written the most extraordinary segment of the Oprah Winfrey Show ever filmed, one in which Oprah herself is finally and fully revealed. Okay, Kitty. Kitty said we all up in Oprah's business. There is a case to be made, and it is certainly made in this book, that Oprah Winfrey is an important and even great figure of the 20th and 21st centuries. But there is also a case to be made that even greatness needs to be examined and put under a microscope. Fact must be separated from myth, truth from hype. Kelley has made that separation, showing both sides of Oprah as they have never been shown before. In doing so, she has written a psychologically perceptive and meticulously researched book that will surprise and thrill everyone who reads it. Okay, so that is the blurb, which is on the front flap on the inside. So what you can kind of read. It gives you a synopsis of what the book is about, who wrote it, their sources, things like that. So we're going to skip the foreword and dive right into chapter 1. Oprah Winfrey blew into Chicago from Baltimore in December 1983 when a dangerous cold wave plunged the windy city temperatures into 23 degrees below zero. She had arrived to host a local daytime talk show, and on January 2nd, 1984, introduced all 233 pounds of herself to the city by marching in her very own parade arranged by WLS-TV. She wore one of her 5 fur coats. Okay, Oprah had a little change if she had 5 fur coats. Come on now. In the 80s. She wore one of her 5 fur coats, a jerry curled, and what she called her Big Mama earrings. Waving to the people along State Street, she yelled, "Hi, I'm Oprah Winfrey. I'm the new host of AM Chicago. Miss Negro on the air." That's my Oprah impression. She kind of sounds like Patrick from SpongeBob to me. But anyway, back to the book. She was a big one-woman carnival full of yow, whoopee, and hallelujah. I thought WLS was crazy when I heard that they had hired an African-American woman to host the morning show in the most radically divided city in America for their audience of suburban, white, stay-at-home moms, said Bill Zwecker of the Chicago Sun-Times. Happily, I was wrong. Chicago was in for a Lollapalooza of a ride. During Oprah's first week, her local morning show trounced the nationally syndicated Donahue Show in the ratings. And within a year, Phil Donahue, the master of talk show television, was packing his bags for New York City. I remember Donahue. Donahue came on in the morning. We only got to watch him when we were on vacation because we were in school. So if we were on a spring break or summer vacation, holiday, that's when we would watch Donahue. And to my knowledge, he was the only morning talk show person on TV at that time that was national. Now, local stations had their shows, but yes. And he did do a lot of. It was something to talk about. It's very interesting things that he showed. It wasn't boring. He did cross the line a few times. He had a panel of guests. He had a microphone. He walked through the crowd or the audience and asked them their input, things like that. There's a lot of question and answer things. So I do remember Donahue, and he was a big deal. Continuing on. Oprah continued her ratings route, having forced him to change his locale. Oprah kicked him out. She now compelled him to change his time slot so as not to compete with her. I need to find a Donahue book to see how he probably wouldn't write the truth, but how he really felt about that. Not only was she a woman, but she was an African American woman. How did he feel about being on top for so long and being knocked out by this lady overnight? This is the way Kitty tells it. By then, she was on the verge of becoming nationally syndicated herself, having received a $1 million signing bonus when the Oprah Winfrey Show was sold in 138 markets. During that first year, she became such an immediate sensation that she appeared on The Tonight Show, won 2 local Emmys, and was poised to make her movie debut in The Color Purple. Her discovery for the role of Sophia in that film had brought her a Cinderella following and would later reward her with Golden Globe and Oscar nominations for Best Supporting Actress. Now, I remember all of these things. I remember no one won. I remember us watching with bated breath and being very disappointed that they did not win. I think Out of Africa may have won. I can't remember. But we thought everybody in that cast, including the director, Whoopi Goldberg, maybe Quincy Jones may have won something for the soundtrack. But we knew something was up when they didn't win, or at least we felt slighted. But continuing. I was like Lana Turner at the soda fountain, only a different color, Oprah joked, telling the story of how Quincy Jones in Chicago on Business had seen her on television one morning and called Steven Spielberg to say he had found the perfect person to play Sophia. She is so fine, said Jones. Fat and feisty. Very feisty. Oprah spent the summer of 1985 filming the movie, which she later recalled as the happiest time of her life. The Color Purple was the first time I ever remember being in a family of people where I truly felt loved. When people genuinely see your soul and love your soul, when they love you for who you are and what you have to give. Now, I think this story is going to be a lot about that, about her not feeling loved, not getting the attention that she needed, and maybe that's why she did the things that she did to get to where she was, because at a point, Oprah was it. Whatever she said, everyone believed. Whatever she said we bought it. When she came on, we were watching. So, it's very telling. By that time, she felt she was on the cusp of the kind of success she had always dreamed of for herself. I was destined for great things, she said. I'm Diana Ross, and Tina Turner, and Maya Angelou. Brimming with confidence, she told Steven Spielberg he should put her name on the theater marquee and her face on the film's posters. I am probably the most popular person in Chicago, she said. When Spielberg demurred, saying it was not in her contract, she chided him for making a big mistake. You wait. You'll see. I'm going national. I'm going to be huge. In her voice, I'm going to be huge. Spielberg did not change his mind. And Oprah did not forget. When she became as huge as she had predicted, he became a weed in a garden of grudges. She recounted their conversation 13 years later in a 1998 interview with Vogue. I'm going to be on TV, and people are going to, know me. And Steven said, really? Really? And I said, you might want to put my name on the poster for the movie. He said, no, can't do that. And I say, but I think I'm really going to be kind of famous. which is my favorite I told you so, Steven, you should have put my name on that poster.
Let's call Steven Spielberg and ask him tell him now it's time and see if he'll say okay. And he did. So what it means is full circle. Do you know, my name was not on the poster for the original film because I wasn't a big enough name to have my name on the poster. And so somebody just sent me, last night actually, a former lawyer of mine sent me the credits where it says producers, Steven Spielberg and Oprah Winfrey. And I said, 39 years it took to get that. I finally got my name on the poster 39 years later.
A week before the movie's premiere, Oprah decided to do a show on rape, incest, and sexual molestation. When management balked, she said she was going to be seen on the big screen in a few days in a film about the subject, so why not explore it first for her local audience? The station agreed, reluctantly at first, and then ran announcements asking for volunteers to talk about their sexual abuse on air. We now know that a lot of the guests on these daytime talk shows were not genuine. These were paid people to fabricate stories or, maybe make the stories bigger than what they were in order to get viewers. We've heard it on all of them. Jenny Jones, Jerry Springer, Donahue, Geraldo, Ricky Lake, Sally Jesse, all of these shows, they paid these people. So when they say they were looking for volunteers, did you really find some, or did you pay some people to say some things? Because it seems like when Oprah interviewed these people, which I don't have the full transcript, but it seems like she was, telling them what she wanted them to say. They didn't say much. She said more than they actually did, but it was kind of like a probing, like, didn't you do this and how did this? It was less them on their own speaking. So, and this is a station who is capitalizing on a potential Oscar winner in a potentially Oscar-worthy film, and they've got her on their show. They know that if this jumps off, she's going to leave. So to make something as scandalous, something that people would talk about, is not far-fetched. That they would not find the perfect volunteer with the perfect story. And it worked, because how many 30 years later, we're still talking about it. This particular show became Oprah's signature program, a victim who triumphs over her adversity, which is Oprah's story. As a matter of fact, that's my opinion. Not just is it her signature program, but it's her life. And the start of the Oprah Winfrey phenomenon. No one realized at the time, but that the show would elevate her to national prominence and eventually make her a champion for victims of sexual abuse. During that program, she introduced a new kind of television that plunged her viewers into 2 decades of muddy lows and starry highs. In the process, she became the world's first Black female millionaire and a cultural icon of nearly saintly status, which is the scrubbing of the internet. I am the instrument of God, she said at various times along the way. I am his messenger. My show is my ministry. Oprah's show on sexual abuse was promoted for days in advance to draw an audience interested in incest victims. Except for her small staff, no one knew what she intended to do. So somebody did know what was going on. So it wasn't as pie as we thought when the show came on. Except for her small staff, no one knew what she intended to do, other than present a titillating subject, which she had been doing since she started on WLS. No one had any idea that she was about to blur the long-standing line in television between discussion and confession, between interviewing and self-revelation, between objectivity and a fuzzy area of fantasy and factual manipulation, which is what I just said. All this, except for her small staff, so somebody did know what she was going to do, but it came out as, her emotion took over. But everybody, it was enough people in there that knew what was going to happen. So she had us. She bamboozled us, and we fell for it. We fell for it on Thursday, December 5th, 1985. Oprah began her 9 a.m. show by introducing a young white woman she identified only as Lori. 1 out of 3 women in this country have been sexually abused or molested, she told her audience before returning to her guest. Your father started out fondling you. When did it lead to something other than fondling? I think around between 9 and 10, said Lori. Well, what happened? Do you remember the first time your father had sexual intercourse with you? What did he say to you? How did he tell you? What did he tell you? There was not a sound from the audience of mostly white women. He just told me that he wanted to make me feel good, said Lori. Where was your mother? She had gone on a trip somewhere. She was out of town. She was gone for weeks, and I stayed with my father for those 3 weeks. So he came into your room and he started fondling you. That has to be a pretty frightening thing when you're 9 years old and your father has sexual intercourse with you. Lori nodded but said nothing. I know it's hard. I really do. I know how hard it is. When he was finished, what did he, or during this act, well, first of all, wasn't it painful for you? You see how she's not even letting the girl talk? She's telling her what to say. All the girl has to say is yes or no. So, you could see it as maybe her buffering it since the girl was on TV. Well, lady now was on TV, or this is fabricated and she is, didn't this happen? How did it go? Didn't it hurt? Lori squirmed a bit. He used to tell me that he was sorry and that he would never do it again. A lot of times after he would do something, he would kneel down and make me pray to the Lord that he wouldn't do it anymore. Moments later, Oprah waded into the audience and planted her microphone in front of a middle-aged white woman in glasses. I was sexually abused too, the woman said. Well, my life kind of started like Lori's with the fondling, and it resulted in a child who's he's 30 years old right now, but 16 years of his life he's been in a state institution for autism. Were you sexually abused by a member of your family? The woman choked up as she admitted to being impregnated by her father. What? See, this is the reaction that we are giving her watching this. But we did say before that her staff knew exactly what she was going to do. So was this woman planted? Did she walk straight up to this particular woman? Wow, like you just walked up to a woman in your audience and this is her story? So this is your father's child, said Oprah. Yes, it happened very frequently, as with Lori also. Practically every day when my mother would go to work. That is horrible. One of the most horrible experiences that I can remember. As the woman broke down and struggled to regain control, Oprah flung her arm around her and then burst into tears herself, covering her eyes with her left hand. With the mic in her right, she signaled to the control room. She said it was to stop the cameras, but they kept rolling as she sobbed onto the woman's shoulder. Of course they did. Come on now. How many times have we seen that?
Tell me they're not filming.
Oh, no, don't worry, dear heart. I own every frame. Nobody will see anything we don't want them to see. No, boys, equipment off. Equipment off. No.
Yes, he's going to the Carlisle for the next week.
Good. Well, I wanted to take you through all of these.
Truman,
Oh.
they're still recording.
Shut it off, David. I told you.
Shut it off.
Oh.
Please.
The same thing happened to me, she said. The fact that I had all these unfortunate experiences permeates my life. For the next few seconds, Oprah appeared to be discovering for the first time what she had experienced as a 9-year-old child was indeed rape. A defilement so unspeakable that she had never been able to put it into words until that very moment. Her audience felt as if they were watching the fissures of a soul split open as she admitted her shameful secret. Oprah revealed that she had been raped by her 19-year-old cousin when she was forced to share a bed with him in her mother's apartment. He told me not to tell. Then he took me to the zoo and bought me an ice cream cone. Later, she said she was also sexually molested by her cousin's boyfriend and then her favorite uncle. I was continually molested from the age of 9 until I was 14. Wow. I'm not saying that this didn't happen to her. I'm just saying it's very convenient that all of this happened a week before the Color Purple release or whatever, or the awards, whichever one. And that she decided to reveal this now. I guess maybe that would make her more relatable to us. And Oprah seemed like she aligned herself with whatever was going to push her forward in her career. So if somebody said, hey, you should get on here and, for it to seem more human and for people to connect with you, you should tell them this part of you. This would be great, for your story, for your backstory. And she agreed. Because it's only so much that you can do on television without talking to your producers and directors and the owner of the station and things like that. A lot of these things are not surprise. It's not a surprise. It was all planned. But if these things really happened to her, then that's horrible. And I wonder how it felt for her to have to divulge all this information on TV. Maybe the tears and the emotion were real. Maybe she really didn't want to tell us, but the producers were like, yeah, if you want to be a big star, then this is what you need to do. So this is a one thing in the long line of things that she would do in order to get to where she needs to get. Oprah's staggering personal confession made national news, and she was applauded by many for her honesty and forthrightness. But her family vehemently denies her accusations. And some people suggest that she was trying to get publicity for her movie role since she had never discussed her abuse with anyone before her public revelation. I was so offended by that, she said later. There was something in Parade magazine, a question published not too long ago. Was Oprah Winfrey really sexually abused, or was that just hype for the Oscars? Didn't I just say that? Well, I thought it amazes me that somebody would think that I'd do that as hype, but I suppose it has been done. I suppose. You know it's been done because you in on it. Come on now. You don't say those. There are some things that you can say, but this is television. And back then, television was censored. Those TV studios would get fined if certain things came out live. I believe Richard Pryor was the catalyst behind the 6 seconds or however many seconds from taping to live so that they could beep or catch, things that you may say that should not be on television. So she knows it's been done. She knows it. She said the management of her station was upset by her shocking revelations. But didn't she just say before that people knew? It wasn't a whole lot of people, but people knew what was going on. She said the management of her station was upset by her shocking revelations, and that even 23 years later, Dennis Swanson, former vice president and general manager of WLS-TV, would not discuss the matter because he knew it was some, what. Long credited with hiring Oprah and bringing her to Chicago, he would not comment on his reactions to her first show about sexual abuse. At the time, Swanson and his promotion manager, Tim Bennett, were elated by Oprah's spectacular ratings, but stung by press criticism of her emphasis on sex shows, particularly the shows she had done on pornography. The TV critic of the Chicago Sun-Times, P.J. Bednarski, had castigated them and the corporate morality of WLS for allowing Oprah to devote an hour-long show to hardcore sex. I wonder if he has ever seen or was just curious about a porn video. These people kill me with this. Shame on them, he wrote, and then blasted Oprah for inviting 3 female porn stars to talk about male organs, male endurance, and male ejaculations. Maybe that's why he was mad. But this is his part of his article. In the saddest portion of the show, there was a discussion of what they called on air the graphic lovemaking money shot. That got a lot of laughs. The Ask the Porn Stars program amazingly carried not a minute of discussion in which Winfrey stated, asked, or even worried that these X-rated stars were, in fact, cheap hucksters, talentless, sleazy skin traders. Wow, that is a mouthful. She barely wondered if these films demeaned women. Instead, she asked, "Don't you get sore?" And Oprah would ask these questions and just be standing there. You know, if you've ever watched the Oprah show, she would ask and then she'd give that little goofy laugh. She was a little goofy to me. But the way that she would ask, it demanded an answer. And maybe it was what the audience was thinking. Who knows? For someone with the natural talent of Winfrey, it was telling evidence she's got some growing up to do, Bednarski wrote, before adding that Oprah's porn show got a 30% share of the 9 a.m. Chicago audience, much larger than usual. It also got mentioned all around town and got its own column right here. The column's headline, "When Nothing's Off Limits, Oprah Winfrey Profits from Porn Stars Appeal." Let's not blame this whole thing on Oprah. It's not like it was her show, it was her station. You know, this went through a lot of channels to become fruition. So we can't blame her, but she's the face of the show, so that's what we're going to do. And I wonder if Bednarski enjoyed watching the show so that he could write this. There were other things that he could have written about. Oprah understood the axiom of television. She who gets ratings rules. My mandate is to win, she told reporters. During crucial sweeps weeks, she insisted on bang bang shoot 'em up shows for which her producer, Deborah DeMaio, led the Eureka hunt, with Oprah weighing in with her own ideas. I'd love to get a priest to talk about sex, she said. What? Oh, come on, Oprah. I'd love to get one to say, yes, I have a lover. I worship Jesus and her. Yes, I love her and her name is Carolyn. The Catholics would never go for that. Maybe that was just something she was saying to keep us watching to see if she ever could get it. But that's not going to happen. In her race for ratings during Black History Month, Oprah booked members of the Ku Klux Klan in their white sheets and cone hoods. She also did a show featuring members of a nudist colony who sat on stage naked. I remember that because we were young and we did. People on TV now, you can see it. It's not hard to find, but back then you had to look in the National Geographic magazines, you know, or catch a dirty magazine somewhere, but we didn't see this kind of stuff. So I do remember that show. Only their faces were shut down on television, but the studio audience got a full frontal view, so management insisted the show be taped. That will allow us to make sure nothing that's not supposed to be seen on TV will get on, said Deborah DeMaio. Management also said that each member of the audience who arranged to attend had to be called and reminded that the guests would be nude. No one was turned off, said DeMaio. On the contrary, they were excited. I mean, what fun. Exactly. And do you see all the meticulous behind the scenes that goes on here? They taped it first. They called the audience. They didn't want to get in trouble. So all of these wow moments were not so wow. They were planned. Oprah admitted to being nervous during the nudist show. I pride myself in being real honest, but on that show, I was really faking it. I had to act like it was a perfectly normal thing to be interviewing a bunch of naked people and not look. I wanted to look into the camera and say, my God, there are penises here, but I couldn't. And that made me real nervous. Is that right? When she told her bosses she wanted to do women with sexual disorders and interview a woman who had not had an orgasm once during her 18-year marriage, and then interview the male sex surrogate who gave her the orgasm lessons, and then a young woman so sexually addictive that one night she had 25 men in her bed, the program director blanched, and rightfully so. Come on now. Now she trying to push it. She's got a little, juice, and she's trying to juice it. Management doesn't want problems, but they want ratings, Oprah said. I told them I'll be decent, and I was. They don't understand what women feel, and I do. Men think, for instance, that if you do a show about mastectomy, you can't show a breast. I say you have to show the breast. The day after her sexual disorder show, the WLS switchboard lit up with irate callers. So Oprah asked her producer to come on stage and invited comments from her studio audience. The old saying, any attention is good attention. So they're getting attention. Yesterday's show was gross, said one woman. I don't know how else to describe it. Absolutely degrading. Yet you came to the taping to support the show the next day. Okay, lady. There are millions of women who never experience sexual pleasure, said Oprah. We had 633 calls from women yesterday after the show on the computer. We made lots of women feel like they are not alone. Okay, Oprah. With so many quality subjects, why go to the bottom of the barrel? DeMayo fielded that question. What's bottom of the barrel for one person may not be for someone else. That is very true. We feel good about shows in which we talk about problems, whether it's incest or agoraphobia or lack of orgasm. Oprah stepped in. It bothers me when we're accused of being sensational and exploitive. We are not. We are a caring group of people. A brief pause. Sometimes we make mistakes. Oprah might have been referring to one of her earlier shows titled, Does Sexual Size Matter? Come on, Oprah. During a discussion about penis size, she had blurted out, if you had your choice, you'd like to have a big one if you could. Bring a big one home to mama. You could almost hear the collective gasp of 2.95 million TV households in the Chicago market. When the local media had picked themselves up off the floor, most were sputtering. P.J. Bednarski said that Oprah had stretched the limits of taste, but Alan G. Artner wrote in the Chicago Tribune that Oprah was simply being natural in the way that many people are when blindly and without guile, their self-absorption leads them to play the jester. Later, Oprah promised reporters that when she went national, she would not say the word penis without giving her audience fair warning. Now I can say penis whenever I want. There, I just said it, she whooped. Penis, penis, penis. By then, she had reporters dancing on strings. They loved her colorful copy and could not conjure adjectives fast enough to describe her. Big, brassy, loud, aggressive, hyper, laughable, lovable, soulful, low down, earthy, raw, hungry, wrote Howard Rosenberg, TV critic for the Los Angeles Times. Another critic confessed, I don't care if she's a mile wide and an inch deep, she's irresistible. The Philadelphia Inquirer magazine dubbed her show the National Enquirer of the Air. It raises the lowest common denominator to new and lower depths. Oh, wow. It's a yeasty mix of sleaze, freaks, pathos, tact, camp, hype, hugs, hollers, gush, fads, and tease marinated in tears. Well, you've definitely found the adjectives. That's a whole lot. A yeasty mix. Whoa. Wow. Taping bumpers for an upcoming show she was supposed to read Tuesday on AM Chicago, Couples Who Suffer from Impotency. After flubbing the line twice, she said, "Next week on AM Chicago, couples who can't get it up." Discussing a new diet, she turned to her audience and said, "Oh yeah, that's the one that makes your bowel movements smell better." Tactless. That they meant did they put that on there? Or they did say tact. They didn't say tactless. During the show on impotence, a solemn middle-aged man said that following his corrective surgery, his testicles had inflated to the size of basketballs. "Wait a minute," hollered Oprah. "How do you walk with testicles the size of basketballs?" Exactly, Oprah. Now that I would like to know. I hope he answered. On another show, she interviewed a woman who claimed to have been seduced by 7 priests. So maybe that was the closest that she got to what she wanted with the priest's revelations. "What did you do when the priest pulled his pants down?" "Nothing," said the woman. "But then he took my hand." Oprah rolled her eyes and the audience roared. They loved her irreverence, her inappropriate comments, and her outrageous questions. "Why did you become a lesbian?" she asked one woman. On another show, a sociologist described how having a roommate could lead to having a lesbian relationship, and Oprah emphatically announced that "I'm never getting a roommate." During an interview with a department store official in charge of loss prevention, she said, "What happens when you catch people stealing? Do they really lose body control? I mean, do they break down and wet themselves?" Not even celebrities were spared. She questioned Brooke Shields, "Are you really a nice girl?" She asked Sally Field if Burt Reynolds wore his toupee in bed. She blasted Calvin Klein for his advertising. "I hate all those jean ads. They all have tiny little butts in those ads." She queried Dudley Moore about how a man as short as he could sleep with women who were so tall. "Luckily," said the movie star, "most of the extra length seems to be in their legs." Indeed, she seemed preoccupied with short men in bed. While discussing an appearance by Christy Brinkley, who was soon to marry Billy Joel, Oprah said to her producers, "Who really cares about her acting career? I want to know about her relationship with Billy Joel and what it's like making love with a short guy. Billy Joel is pretty short, isn't he?" Oprah became so popular that WLS extended the morning show to an hour and renamed it in her honor. They also gave her a theme song entitled "Everybody Loves Oprah," which declared, "She's mod, she's hip, she's really got style." I did not know that her show started off 30 minutes. I remember our neighbor had a huge satellite dish. I don't know if you guys remember. This thing was as big as a house, and it would get programs and reception from everywhere. That's where I first saw her in Chicago, before the actual Oprah Winfrey show. But I thought, because it was recorded, it would come on in the morning, and we would watch the VHS tape of it sometimes, and I don't know, I thought it was an hour. When you're young, it just seems long. 30 minutes is a long time to sit and watch something like that. The adult programs. Dennis Swanson tried to capitalize on her popularity by putting her on the news. He wanted to experiment with her as an anchor because her talk show was such a hit, said Ed Kosowski, a former WLS producer. She anchored for the 4 p.m. news for a week. It didn't work. It was a risk for the station and a gamble for Oprah. Swanson took her off immediately. She just didn't have the journalistic chops. Absolutely no authority. She's great at the girly girl stuff, but she just can't do the news. Undetoured, Swanson sent his $200,000 a year talk show host to Ethiopia with anchors Mary Ann Childers and Dick Johnson to report on Chicago's project to ship grain to the African nation in the midst of its famine. A week before she left, Oprah had started a television diet on Channel 7 to lose 50 pounds, having made a public bet with comedian Joan Rivers on The Tonight Show.
You lose 15, I'll lose 5. What do you,
Listen!
That's the only way I'll do it. I'll keep thinking,
I'll
that
lose
bitch
30.
is losing and I'm not. I'll be furious. I'll do it if you do it.
You will?
Yeah.
It's a deal.
It's a deal. It's a deal. 5 pounds for me.
Yes!
Be great.
Yes.
That's great.
That's great.
That's great.
The timing seemed awkward to PJ Bednarski, who commented on the image of an overfed correspondent interviewing victims of starvation. Isn't it a problem sending a personality who confesses such a love for food to a country where there is so little, he asked. Oprah agreed. You're right. It's sick, isn't it? That is an attest to how the media shapes what you think. Because I don't know if I would turn the TV on and see someone in Africa helping people that I would say, wow, she is so big. Why is she there? They should have sent a thinner person. I mean, no one thinks that. Now, I might would think in comparison that the people might look really small next to her. But who thinks that? That just shows you how media decides the way that you should think. For a few days after her sexual abuse show, she tried to placate management by not talking about rape and incest. But when she saw the show's ratings, the letters that poured in, the calls to the WLS switchboard, and the reaction of women on the street, she knew she had given a voice to a taboo torment that many women had suffered. She had found an issue that resonated with her predominantly female audience, so she pushed for more shows on sexual abuse. In the process, she fostered an image of herself as anti-male because so many of her shows presented men as pigs. However, she became a heroine to women and a champion for children. And I do remember that a lot of her shows were pretty racy and they were not forgiving to men. With that show and her confession and of what she had endured as a child, Oprah became more than a talk show host who entertained by trolling the raw side of the street. As someone who had suffered and survived and shared her pain, she became an inspiration for victims who felt defeated by adversity. She was not the first to give voice to the sordid defilement of child abuse. She had been preceded by writers such as Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, and Alice Walker, The Color Purple. But Oprah had the megaphone of television, and she used it to reach women shackled by the shame of what had been done to them as children. What I think is that sexual abuse of children is more common than uncommon in this country, she said in 1986. You get 5 women in one room, and you can get 3 of them to admit it. Her own confession, plus her subsequent shows exploring the devastation of sexual molestation, became the strongest force in society to help women begin to heal and recover their lives, which is very interesting in light of everything that's going on with her now, with the children and abuse. The next 3 pages are a listing of shows, their air dates, and the titles of the shows. I will post them here now, but I will not read all of them. Some of the members of Oprah's family who denied her own story of sexual abuse accused her of presenting sensational shows on the subject simply for high ratings. She encountered that their refusal to accept her story indicated their denial, their inability to face their own complicity in the matter, and the depth of shame all families endure because of sexual molestation. As a champion for victims of child abuse, Oprah spoke to the Senate Judiciary Committee in 1991 to support mandatory sentencing of child abusers. We have to demonstrate that we value our children enough to say that when you hurt a child, this is what happens to you. It's not negotiable. She hosted Scared Silent, Exposing and Ending Child Abuse, a 1992 documentary showed on PBS, NBC, CBS, and ABC, which became the most watched documentary aired on national television to that date. I remember that. It was something that a lot of families watched. I'm sure a lot of people were uncomfortable, especially if it was going on in their house. In 1993, she initiated the National Child Protection Act, which established a database of convicted child abusers and became known as the Oprah Bill. Unfortunately, the legislation was not effective. The bill was supposed to provide information gathered from all states concerning sex offenders and violent felons to organizations working with children. Most states did not set up the procedures for the organizations to apply for background checks, and according to a June 2006 report by the U.S. Attorney General, the Oprah bill did not have the intended impact of broadening background checks. Years later, she created Oprah's Child Predator Watch List at www.oprah.com to help track down child sex offenders. In December 2005, there were 10 men on the list, and 15 months later, 5 of them had been captured because Oprah had drawn attention to their cases. She offered to give a reward of $100,000 for information leading to the capture of any of the men on the list. And by September 2008, her company announced that 9 of the men had been captured. In at least 3 cases, Oprah paid out $100,000 to those who turned the men in. Throughout the years, she continued to do shows on sexual abuse. Some of those shows were gratuitous. I Want My Abused Kids Back, Call Girls and Madams, Fathers Dating Their Daughters' Friends, Women Who Turn to Lesbianism. Others were groundbreaking: Sexual Abuse in Families, Rape and Rape Victims, How to Protect Yourself from Abduction by a Rapist. But each show brought her closer to understanding what had happened to her. Still, it took her a long time to comprehend the real destruction wreaked by child molestation. She learned that sexual abuse is a crime that continues its damage long after the predator is gone, sometimes leaving its survivors suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder many years later, but she did not think she was one of them. Initially, she asserted that she had sailed through her experience of rape completely unscathed. She was strong, sassy, and confident. It was not a horrible thing in my life, she said of her years of sexual abuse, adding that she let the fondling continue because she liked the attention. And I think a lot of the confusion and guilt comes to the child because it does feel good. It really does. Insert the clip that's going around now about her saying what she said. She's always felt this way, and I believe that what she's saying has been misconstrued, but nevertheless, here it is.
So this is what so many people don't understand. A big part of the confusion and shame for child victims is that the attention and the seduction from the predator, who is probably going to be somebody you know.
Right.
In order for it to work, it has to be somebody you know, somebody you admire, somebody you respect, or maybe even love. And it feels good. I mean, if you're 7 years old and somebody, which I was trying to say this to my friends who had children, you're 7 years old and someone is stroking your penis, it feels good. Right. Even though you don't have a name for what that is, it feels good. So confusing for children.
Yeah.
And when I first said this years ago, people were like, you're crazy, because everybody wants to believe it's like sexual assault and you're being thrown up against the wall and you're being raped. And I have said for years, if the abuser is any good, you won't even know it's happened. You will be in it and you won't even know it's happened.
Always more forthcoming with Black publications, she admitted to Ebony in 1993, even as she testified before Congress, that no child is responsible for being sexually abused, and that she still felt in her case she must have done or said something provocative to encourage her molesters. Only now I am letting go of that shame, she said. And good for her, because a lot of victims, whether it's a sexual crime, a financial crime, anything, you always feel like it was something that you did to warrant that, or something that you could have done differently to detour it away from you. It's not your fault. So I'm glad she's let that go. In the days before she knew better, Oprah dismissed rape as sex, not violence. During her debut week in Chicago, the soap opera star Tony Geary was a guest. A woman in the audience asked about the General Hospital storyline in which Geary's character commits rape. Oprah quipped, "Well, if you're going to get raped, you might as well get raped by Tony Geary." Now that was in poor taste. She shouldn't have said that, especially if she had gone through it. But in the 80s, all the storylines of all the popular shows had a rape scene. The popular shows in the 80s were Dynasty. What was the other one? Dallas. I believe the first season of Dallas, Gary, which was a grown man, was sleeping with Lucy, who was a high schooler, which later he turned out to be her uncle, but they didn't know that. JR raped Sue Ellen, Blake raped Crystal on Dynasty, Adam raped Kirby on Dynasty, but she didn't have to say this, But I'm just saying all those things to say that it was a thing to talk about. I don't know if Oprah spearheaded it or if she just rode the wave, but all of these popular soap opera shows that were played at night with millions of viewers explored the topic. It took many more shows for her to see the connection between the crime that had scarred her as a child and the ravages that followed. Adolescent promiscuity and unwanted pregnancy, abysmal relationships with men, gravitation to women, drug abuse, an obsessive need to control, and the compulsive eating that drove her way up and down the scale for decades. That paragraph right there is Oprah in a nutshell. Rather than seek psychotherapy to deal with her wounds, she sought the salve of public confession on television, thinking that would be the best solution for herself and for others. No, she wanted attention. She did that because people ran up to her and said, "Oh, Oprah, thank you so much. I feel the same way you went. The same thing that happened to you happened to me. Oh gosh, I just love you. Thank you. You helped me through it. If it wasn't for you, I would." That's why she said it. And it benefited her. A lot of me talking about myself has been as cathartic for me as it is for the guests on my show. I understand why they let a lot of it out, because once it's out there, it doesn't hold you anymore. I mean, coming out and saying I was sexually abused did more for me than it did for anybody. I couldn't have done it any other way and still been me. With that particular show, she had identified herself as a victim, which gave her a platform of authority to address the issue, but she refused to be defeated by the abuse. As a result, she was rewarded with huge ratings, national attention, and waves of sympathy that inoculated her against criticism. Once she went public with her private shame, she wore it like a new hat, even adding to her official press biography that she was a childhood victim of sexual abuse. And this is what disappoints me. If all these things that they're saying about her now is true, this is why I say I was disappointed. Am I mad that she exploited these things to get where she needed to be? No, because people lie every day to get what they want. And if you are watching this and saying that you never told a lie, no matter how big or small, then you're not telling the truth. I'm not mad at her for doing that. I'm disappointed that she exploited this and exploited so many people. She began accepting invitations to speak at rape centers, address victims of incest, and raise money for children who had been molested. She testifies before Congress and got legislation proposed, passed, and signed into law by the President of the United States. Within a few months, she felt safe enough to talk about her own rape in further detail. The guy was a cousin by marriage. I was 9. He was 19. Nobody else was at home at the time. I didn't know what was happening. I'd never seen a man. I may not have even known that boys were different. Oh, wow, she was that young. I knew, though, that it was a bad thing because it started with him rubbing me and feeling me. I remember it was painful. Afterwards, he took me to the zoo as a payment for not telling anyone. So this is when she says, if he's any good, what did she say? If he's any good, no one will know. I was still hurting and recall bleeding on the way there. Oh, Lord. That year I found out where babies came from. And I lived in absolute horror that at any moment I was going to have a baby. For the entire 5th grade, I got these stomach aches during which I would excuse myself to go to the bathroom so I could have the baby there and not tell anyone. Oh, Oprah. Oh, man. Many years later, she talked about what had happened in her mother's house. The boyfriend of my mother's cousin was a constant sexual molester of mine. And I just felt like this is what happens to you. I felt like I was marked somehow. I thought it was my fault. I thought I was the only person that had ever happened to, and it was very lonely. And I knew in my spirit that it would not have been safe for me to tell. I felt instinctively that if I told, I would be blamed, because those were the days when people said, well, you were fast anyway. Or else, like Pa says of Celia in Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple, she always did lie. My abuser practically told everybody. He'd say, I'm in love with Oprah. I'm going to marry her. She's smarter than all of you. He would say it and we'd go off to places together. Everybody knew it. Oh my goodness. That's horrible. So that's why she didn't have to tell, because everybody knew. And they just chose to look the other way. They were in denial, and there was a sick thing going on. My cousin who lived with us was also a battered woman, and I used to bargain with her boyfriend. What? That he could have sex with me if he wouldn't beat her. I felt protective of her, and I'd say, God, okay, I'll go with you if you promise not to beat Alice. And that's how it was. It was an ongoing, continuous thing. So much that I started to think, this is the way of life. Oprah appeared to be so open with revelations about her intimacies on television that no one suspected she might be hiding secrets. Like comedians who cover their darkness with humor, she had learned to joke away her pain and keep what hurts the most stuffed deep inside. She knew how to give just enough information to be amusing and to deflect further inquiry, which is one reason she insisted on taking control of her own public relations when her show went national. While she looked like she was telling the world everything about herself, she was actually keeping locked in within more than she would share on television. She felt she needed to present herself as open, warm, and cozy on the air and conceal the part of her that was cold, closed, and calculating. She was afraid she wouldn't be liked if people saw her a more complex dimension to the winning persona she chose to present. Pleasing people is what I do, she said. I need to be liked, even by people I dislike. Her personal victimization would shadow her shows for the next 20 years, influencing her choice of topics and guests, her book club selections, her charities, even her relationships. She was forever trying to come to terms with what had happened in her mother's house. She used her sad childhood to try to help others as she tried to help herself, but without therapy, her struggle was never ending, showing itself in a constant battle with weight, losing and gaining, binging and fasting. Her excessive need for control, plus the immense gratification she derived from being the center of attention, applause, and approval, had its roots in her adolescent sexual abuse. The need to climb out of that sordid hole would drive her toward unparalleled success, which brought her the rich rewards of an extravagant lifestyle, a healing balm to growing up poor. And that is the end of chapter 1. Now, Oprah's the queen of rags to riches, and if you lost 15 pounds, she lost 30. She's got to upstage you at some point. So I don't know if this really happened to her, then I feel really, really bad for her. If she is running a game on me, then what am I going to do? But I can't do anything, but that is very disappointing if these things aren't true or to the extent that she's saying. So her family, because she has indicated that they knew what was going on and they didn't say anything. So are they saying she's lying because that would bring shame on them? Or is it a lie? Who knows? We don't know. But in these early years of the indoctrination of Oprah, we fell for it. I don't know. And I find it hard to believe that she is this, multimillionaire. Or at that point, she was making $200,000, which in the 80s and 90s, that was a lot of money. Now that's a pretty comfortable life. If you earn $200,000 a year, you're all right. I find it hard to believe that she's this cash cow for this TV network and nobody's getting her any help. Nobody's getting her any therapy. She's not talking to anyone. No one is suggesting. She has no one in her corner that's saying, even if for their own interests, they don't want her to go crazy and retire. They want her to stay and do these things. Or maybe they're keeping her that way so that she can continue to do what she does on television. You know, she's hurt, and that's a better show to them, which gives them more ratings, more opportunities for people buying ad space on her show. It's about money. A lot of times it's not about the well-being of the person. And Oprah seems to be very determined, and she seemed to, within her life, align herself with people who could get her where she needed to go. And whoever else fell to the wayside, you know, and maybe that was her family. I don't know if that was the deal that she made to get to the things that she wanted and to get to where she is today. Who knows? But she does seem a little cold, but you know, with that type of abuse, who knows? And she was passed around a lot. It just seems like she wanted validation, and however she could get it, that's how she would get it. And we all know people like that. They don't care how the attention comes. They just want the attention. They don't care the carnage they leave behind, as long as they get the attention. So that is chapter 1. I'll be back to read chapter 2. It's pretty interesting. I would have to say, if any of you are here and don't remember the Oprah show, I'm sure there are places where you can see clips. I have some on VHS tape, but I do not have a VHS player. But we would watch Oprah at 4:00. It would come on. We would come home from school and turn on Oprah. If we weren't home, we would set the VCR to tape it. Some of the shows were good, some of them weren't. A lot of times as a young person, we wanted to see the movie stars that would come on. We didn't really care about some of the news people that were on there, the controversial things. But so we'll see how this book goes out. We have 20 chapters from Kitty, all up in Oprah's business. Let's not hold Oprah's feet to the fire and keep it there. Now we can pass, you know, how she was running through them coals. We can run our ass across them coals, but you know, let's not just hold her feet to the fire just yet until everything pans out. And even after everything pans out, we don't know if it's true or not. Everything in Oprah's world and in Hollywood is not as it seems. So, you know, will we ever know? Is it even our business to know? It's our fault that we fell for that shit. She was just good at what she does. So Oprah's price for fame is what it seems like she really, really wanted. And no one was going to stop her. But if where she came from, if what she says is true, then what did she have to lose? Something to think about. What do you think? What are your feelings on Oprah? Are you upset that she got you too? You believed it and was watching the shows and buying all of Oprah's best thing. What was it? Oprah's whatever it was, that list that came out every year. And do you have any Tory Burch shoes? She launched Tory Burch. Did you like Ellen? Did you listen to Dr. Phil? Did you follow the advice of that other doctor man? Forgot his name. Did you listen to Iyanla? You know, did you watch the R. Kelley interview with Gail, my best friend Gail? Were you part of the Oprah effect? Did you go out and buy Oprah's favorite things? That's what it's called. Did you buy the Oprah magazine? I have some. I threw a lot of them away, but I kept a few just because, you know, you never know. So let me know. How do you feel? What you're looking forward to? What did you know? What did you not know? What do you know that we haven't covered yet that maybe, you know, we'll read in these 19 chapters? I don't know. Join me for the ride. We'll see you next time on The Readback.
You mean me?
She's fun, she's hip, she's really got her style.
Say that a little louder, please.
AM Chicago, start your day out with a smile.
A full hour of AM Chicago, weekdays at 9.
Everybody loves her.